Okay, topic number 2 is operations with rational expressions. So we've got multiplying, dividing, followed by adding and subtracting. Okay, so top one, number 4, that is a multiplication problem. So the way that you start those off, you either have monomials only or binomials and trinomials. Here we have binomials and trinomials. So we factor everything we can and then simplify. All right, so this one we're going to have a slide divide with that very first one. So we will start, sorry, no parentheses yet, ignore that. We will start by sliding the 6 over and multiplying that by the 5. We're also going to be doing a slide divide with the denominator since this does not reduce down by 2. So slide the 2 down there. So this would be minus 18 times, this one is going to factor normally because it's just a p squared. So start with p times p. We are multiplying to 16, adding to 63, so that would be a positive 9 and a positive 7. And then the denominator looks like just a linear factor, but you do have a GCF that you can factor out. So you can factor out a 4, and then you have p plus 7 after you factor out that 4. All right, so let's work on the slide divides. So this top one, multiplying to 30 and adding to negative 13, would be a negative 10 and a negative 3. I'm going to leave a little space here so we can finish the divide part. This one, multiplying to negative 18 and adding to 17, would be a positive 18 and a negative 1. Okay, so let's finish these off really quickly before we write this one down again. So this one, finish off the slide divide by dividing by 6. This one, finish off the slide divide by dividing by 2. Okay, so let's rewrite that. So 10 over 6 reduces to 5 over 3, and then the 3 would slide back. This one, 3 over 6 reduces down to 1 over 2, and the 2 would slide back. Okay, and then this bottom one, 18 over 2 reduces to 9, so it stays. And then 1/2 does not reduce, so the 2 slides back. Okay, so now these ones, this guy right here is multiplying by this guy. So just visualize that they are right next to each other. So here we have a p plus 9 in the numerator, p plus 9 in the denominator, so those cancel. The p plus 7s cancel, and the 2p minus 1s cancel. So out of all the numerators, this 3p minus 5 is the only thing left. And out of all the denominators, this 4 is the only thing left. So that would be your final answer for number 4. All right, for number 5, we'll go through the exact same process. So top left here, I'm going to sneak in my GCF so you can factor out a 2. And so without the 2, we have 25 minus w squared. That'll save a little space. This one I can factor out a 3 from everything. So 3 comes out, and then I have w squared plus 3w minus 10. This top right does not have a GCF. Bottom right has a 6. Okay, so now without those GCFs, we can reduce them down. So this one, top left, we've got a 2, and then the 25 minus w squared, that's the difference of squares. That is a 5 minus w, 5 plus w. Bottom left, we have a 3 out front. This, when I factor this down, multiplying to a negative 10, adding to a positive 3, would be a positive 5 and a negative 2. Top rights, multiplying to negative 14, adding to 5 would be a positive 7 and a negative 2. And this bottom right is good as is. Okay, so that is completely simplified, so then we can go through and cancel out everything we can. So start with the monomials. So the 2 and 6 can reduce down to 1 over 3. Common misconception, you can't do anything with those 3's because they're being multiplied. All right, so then reduce down everything we can. So we have a 5 plus w. We have a w minus 2. And then we also have a 5 minus w and a w minus 5. So that's going to reduce down to a negative 1. Okay, so I'm sneaking that in there. So don't forget that negative 1. So we have negative 1 times a w minus 7, which is negative w minus 7. And in the denominator, we have a 3 and 3, which multiplies to 9. Okay, Number 6, this one is division. So division, you flip and multiply by the reciprocal. We also are going to have some factoring that we need to do. So the 5y plus 5, we can factor out a 5, like that. The 2 is just a 2, and then we flip and multiply. So this, we're changing these, that we're multiplying by the reciprocal. So the 40y squared minus 32y. You can factor out an 8 and a y. And then that leaves you with a 5y minus 4. The numerator is now the denominator. These two have a 5 in common, so I can factor that out. And then after I divide each piece by 5, I have a 5y minus 4. So take out everything I can. Start with the monomials. 5 and 5 can reduce down. 8 over 2, that divides down to 4. So that takes care of the monomials. Now binomials, you can cancel out anything that's perfectly matching. So the 5y minus 4s can eliminate. So let's see what we've got left over. We have a y plus 1 times a 4y, nothing left in the denominator. So I'm just going to distribute that 4y. So my answer ends up looking like this. Or you can have the 4y out front. So if you wanted to, you could leave it looking like this. All right, so let's look at number 7. We've got, looks like lots of GCFs here. So this top one, we have a GCF of 2. I'm going to start with that. Oops, sorry. Take out my GCF, so that should be a 2 there. Top right, I have a GCF of 16C. So there's just a C plus 3 left over. This one does not have a GCF, so I can start my slide divide. So slide the 4 over, multiply it by the 3. And this one's going to be the difference of squares. Okay, so let's carry on here. So the 2 is out front of my top left. Multiplying -3, adding to +2 would be C plus 3, C minus 1. Bottom left here, I can start, or continue on, I guess, with my slide divide. So start with C times C. Multiplying to a +12, adding to a -7 would be -3 and -4. And then finish it off by dividing by the 4. And then divided by, so this is where I multiply by the reciprocal. So here the 16c squared minus 9 is the difference of squares. That is a 4c minus 3, 4c plus 3, divided by this one, which is good to go. I just had to factor out a GCF. Okay, so let's see what we got here. So the monomials first, so 2 over 16 reduces down to 1 over 8. And then for my binomials, I have c plus 3 over c plus 3. I have, careful here, I think we should be good enough at slide divide. We recognize this. This is a c minus 1. This is also a c minus 1. This 4 would slide back here, and we'd have a 4c minus 3, which can cancel with this 4c minus 3. So if we look closely, I have a 4c plus 3 is my only thing left over in the numerator. Denominator, I have nothing here. I have an 8 and a c. Remember, this is a binomial, this is a monomial. You cannot try to cancel little pieces like that. Okay, number 8, we've got some subtraction, and this is a simpler one. You've got subtraction with a common base, so you're just going to be combining like terms. Be very careful with the subtraction. So 6x minus x ends up being a 5x, and then nothing minus -20 is a +20. My denominator is the common denominator, the x squared minus 16. Last step when you're doing addition and subtraction is to see if there's anything that can reduce down or simplify. So this in the numerator can factor out a 5, and that leaves me with an x plus 4. In the denominator, this is the difference of squares. So I have x minus 4, x plus 4, and I can cancel out my common x plus 4. So my numerator is just a 5. My denominator is that binomial x minus 4. All right, number 9 is another subtraction example. This one I do not have a common denominator. So what you do is you start by rewriting using a common denominator, and that process starts by factoring down any denominators that you have. So here a 3 can come out, and we have a k plus 5. So as of right now, they both have a 3, but this one has a k plus 5 that this one's going to need. So we are going to multiply top and bottom by a k plus 5. That way we'll get them set up as having the same denominator. Okay, so this The 16, we can distribute the 16 to the k plus 5. So 16k plus, and then 5 times 16 is 80. When we're setting this up, just distribute the negative. So minus 4k minus 56, and that is going to be over our common denominator. So for right now, we're just going to leave the 3 out front just in case anything will factor and cancel. Okay, so combine like terms. 16k minus 4k is 12k, and 80 minus 56 would be 24. Okay, so the 3 stays out front. To see if we can simplify, that numerator has a 12 and a 24, so they're both divisible by 12. So I'm going to factor that out, and I'm left with this. So it looks like I can, if you look at the monomials, the 12 and 3, I can reduce those down. So 12 over 3 reduces down to 4. Okay, so distribute the 4 if you want. You don't have to if you don't want to. I'm going to, and then it will look like that. Okay, so let's look onto the next page. We've got some more of these, some more addition and subtraction with unlike denominators. So number 10, we are going to have an m squared, so this will factor down, m minus 9, m minus 1. So notice they both have an m minus 1, which means this guy needs an m minus 9. Okay, so now we would be able to combine them because they'll have the exact same denominator. So first denominator is m squared minus 7m minus 18, plus for the second denominator I need to distribute the 6. So 6m minus 54, and then over our common denominator. So I'll combine up what I can in that numerator. So I just have the 1m squared. Negative 7m, positive 6m would be negative m. And then my negative 18 and my negative 54, those would combine up to a negative 72. So that I'll be able to factor down, see if anything will cancel. All right, so let's look at that numerator. So multiplying to a negative 72 and adding to a negative 1 would be an m minus 9 and m plus 8. And you can see I have a matching binomial in that denominator that I'll be able to cancel out. So this just leaves me with m plus 8, m minus 1. Remember, you can't take pieces of binomials, just full binomials, so you could not do anything with those m's. All right, 11, another addition one with unlike denominators. So let's start by factoring. So 2r plus 1 doesn't factor. 4r squared minus 1 is the difference of squares. So that is 2r plus 1, 2r minus 1. So these match, but this one on the left is going to need a 2r minus 1. Okay, so we can rewrite that. So this distribute the r, so we will have 2r squared minus r, and then plus the rest of that on the other one over our common denominator. Okay, so this, combine like terms, I will have a 2r squared plus 11r and then minus 6. So that's everything combined in the numerator over my common denominator. Okay, so let's do a little side work for that numerator, see if we can factor that down. So this is going to require a little slide and divide. So slide the 2 over to multiply by the 6. Factor that down, we end up with r plus 12, r minus 1, and then divide the 2 back out like that. Okay, so let's see what we can rewrite this as. So 12 divided by 2 reduces down to 6. And then 1/2 does not reduce, so the 2 slides back out front. And you can see that is going to end up canceling with one that I had. So these will cancel, and then I just have these factors left over. Okay, 12, let's do one with monomials. So the 8a and the 24. Okay, so this one has an 8, this one has a 24, so the lowest you can go with is 24. So this one you're going to have to multiply by 3 over 3 to get the 24. This one has an a, so this one would need an a. So you're going to have to multiply by a over a. So now notice when you multiply these all out, they will both have a 24a as their denominator. So here, distribute the 3 to the a plus 4, and then multiply 5 times a. So that will be my numerator once I combine, and then I have the common 24a in the denominator. So here, add up my like terms, 3a and 5a, and then I'll be able to reduce these down, take out a GCF from the numerator. So 8 and 12 are both divisible by 4, so I can factor that out. And then the 4 I can reduce down with this 24 right here. So this is like reducing the monomials. So 4 and 24 are both divisible by 4. That leaves a 6 behind right here. So I have 2a plus 3 as my numerator, and then just a 6 as my denominator. Okay, 13, there's nothing to factor, but they're not the same denominator, so you just kind of multiply each one by the other one. So this one I need to multiply by h plus 5, and then the one on the right I need to multiply by h plus 2. Okay, so then they'll each have the same 2 pieces in the denominator. So on the left, distribute the 2 to the h plus 5. On the right, distribute the 5 to the h plus 2. And then over the common denominator, which for right now I'm just going to leave it in its factored form, like that. Combine like terms in my numerator, 2h and 5h is 7h, and then 10 plus 10 would be 20 over my common denominator. The numerator doesn't have a GCF or really anything else you can do, so it actually is just going to stay like that. You could FOIL the denominator if you want to, but there's really no need to do that. All right, 14, we have 3 different pieces that we're going to be combining up. So let's start by factoring this piece right here. These 2 pieces don't need to factor, but this will factor to x minus 1, x minus 3. So we're going to sneak in our extra multiplying here. So these ones have the denominator that they need. This one needs an x minus 3. This one needs an x minus 1. All right, so this one we're going to multiply by x minus 3, x minus 3. This one will multiply by x minus 1, x minus 1. Okay, so let's rewrite everything we've got here. So these 2, we're going to FOIL the x minus 3 times the 3x minus 1. So first we'll have 3x squared. Outside, x times negative 1. Inside, negative 3 times 3x. And last, negative 3 times negative 1. Next term, be very, very careful here because there is a negative. So I'm going to take this negative and distribute it. So change this to a positive and then distribute the negative to those 2 pieces for when you're foiling. So negative x times positive x would be a negative x squared. Negative x times negative 1 is a positive x. Positive 1 times positive x is another positive x. Positive 1 times negative 1 right here. And then our last one, nothing that we need to FOIL out for this numerator, so that is just an extra x plus 1. Okay, so lots to combine in that first piece. And then the denominator is just a common x minus 1, x minus 3. All right, so we'll combine like terms, that whole numerator, and then see if there's anything that can reduce down there. All right, so we have a 3x squared minus x squared, so that would be a 2x squared. For x's, we have a negative 1, negative 9, that's negative 10, plus x, so now we're at a negative 8, plus x again is a negative 7x. And our constants, we have a 3, minus 1 plus 1, so just 3. And over our common denominator. Okay, so let's check this out, see if we can do a slide divide. So this numerator, slide divide like that. Slide the 2 and multiply it by the 3. And this is x times x. To get the 6 and add up to a negative 7, we would have minus 6 minus 1, and then divide by the 2 to finally finish off that factoring. So the 6 over 2 reduces down to 3, and then the 1/2 does not reduce, the 2 slides back over. So now we've got that numerator factored, now divide it by what we have here. Okay, so the x minus 3's would cancel, And this would leave us with your final answer for that whole crazy problem.